Yo, what is up, guys? Accent here, and today I have a little rant that I'm gonna do for you guys, which is about the Carcharodontosaurus highly anticipated TLC. I actually got a comment that asked me, what are my hopes for the next Carcharodontosaurus TLC, and I thought that it was a very interesting comment. So I'll ask you guys the same question: what do you guys hope to see the next Carcharodontosaurus TLC? So, yep, let's just dive right into it. Okay, so let's just dive into it. And the first thing that I will say about the Carch TLC is obviously something that everybody should expect is new subspecies and obviously a polished model. I don't think they should change Carch's model. I think the model is absolutely unique and it looks great. It just needs a bit of polishing. If they can just polish up the model, then I'd be happy with that. And then when it comes to the subspecies, I think new subspecies are needed. That's just my opinion. Some of the subspecies, obviously, most people don't use them. So I just think that if you could check which subspecies are mostly used amongst Carch players and which mostly aren't used, and then those that aren't very much popular, then you can like switch those for some new subspecies. I think that's something that would be a cool addition to the TLC. So when it comes to the animations, I think new animations would also be needed. Not uh, not every animation needs to be replaced. Like I like the animation, the leg animation, where the car seems like it's dragging its feet across the ground, where it seems like it's gonna charge. I really do like that animation a lot. I also like the third call. I think it looks pretty cool. I guess when it comes to one of the animations, one that I would definitely like to see a change in is the broadcast call. I think that one needs to be changed, and yeah, I wouldn't mind a new animation on that part. So, because I got out of those things out the way, now I think it's time to move on to the kit, which is what I'm basically gonna go more in depth in because I kind of have more suggestions and more ideas in that department. So, when it comes to the head, right, I think the bite should stay the same. It's perfect as it is. I think lacerating bite should stay the same. It is perfect as it is. And surprisingly enough, I think shredding bite is also really good, because I did want a rework for charge. If you have seen my suggestion in the DB's Discord, that's kind of the one bite that I kind of did have some complaints about. But after playing with it previously, even on my recent video, I can tell you that the charge bite is really good. The only thing that I would want to rework in is the debuff. I think maybe they gotta rework the debuff a bit because I don't like the fact that it gives a buff to whoever I'm fighting. If it just gave a debuff with no buff to them, I'd be cool with that. The debuff that it does give them is still pretty good and helpful, and it does decent damage. So yeah, on the head, I don't really think of much. I don't have much suggestions. If you guys have any, then do drop them in the comments and I'll check them out. And then when it comes to the census, that's kind of where it gets interesting. I think Carch should have a passive. You know, most apexes now have passive slots. So I think Carch should definitely get a passive slot, and I think the sauropod killer sense should be the passive, because if you're playing solo as a Carch, I think that having that sense right there as a passive will encourage you to keep playing solo. It'll encourage that solitary characteristics on the Carcharodontosaurus. So I really do think that that sense sauropod killer should be a passive. It should not be a sense that you can equip or unequip. It should just be there passively, because when you're solo, you do kind of need that extra bleed buff, right? So because I want that to be a passive, I think that a new sense would be needed for sure. So ideas that I have would maybe be like a increased stamina recovery near bleeding creature. I think that would be good. I think, or like a sense where like increases your speed by 5% and your stamina recovery by 10%. Because if you don't know, Carch has a persevering scales which increases your stamina by 10%. That's a hide. So you mix that sense with that height and you pretty much have a speed build Carch. I kind of want Carch to have like two builds, where it's like the bleed build or the speed build, right? I want Carch to be able to get more speed on top of the speed that it already has. I don't think that's too broken. I don't think that's too biased. I just think it'll make Carch an interesting thing to play. Alright, cool. So when it comes to the other thing that needs to be changed, I think is the stomp. I think the stomp is pretty slow. Granted, I don't want it to be like obviously as fast as like Absentia Acro stomp. No, I don't want that, but the stomp is kind of slow. I think that an increase in the stomp's animation would be better. Not too much, but just a little faster than it is now. I think that would be good. Alright, so now for my final suggestion, which I think this is something that most Carch players have thought of, which is the voice calls. Guys, please make the voice calls apply to every dinosaur, okay? Because having voice calls that are situational is not only helpful, but it kind of is useless nowadays. If you really think about it, you'll mostly run into other bleeders, you'll mostly run into gigas, you'll mostly run into other Carches, you'll mostly run into titans. You're not gonna run into a lot of Rexes. Yes, there still will be Rexes, obviously, and then when it comes to the herbivores, there's not a lot of sauropods. It's just mostly certain apex herbies, but not sauropods. Not a lot of hadrosaurs. I think that the call works for them as well. I'm not quite sure on that, but just make the call apply to anything that we're fighting, because that would just help so much, and that would make Carch's gameplay so much better. I'm not saying it isn't. It's still good. The gameplay is still good now, don't get me wrong, but I just think that the voice calls applying to everything else will really help Carch, especially when fighting other apexes, because all these other apexes, their voice calls works perfectly fine against any dino, so yeah, I just think that is something that needs to be changed. Other than that though, Divine Beast Carcharodontosaurus is a very fun mod to play. I really do enjoy playing it. I think that they make excellent mods. I mean, you look at the DB Giganotosaurus, that's another great mod. You look at the Mosasaurus, which I've had a lot of interest in the Mosasaurus as of late, and I've actually been practicing on the Mosasaurus, so yeah, watch out for that one. Not saying it's gonna be the next video, but soon definitely. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this rant that I did. This isn't typically the type of video that I would do, but I'm thinking of making more videos like this. It's just me talking to you guys, and you guys letting me know your suggestions down in the comments. So hope you guys enjoyed. Make sure to drop a like, comment, and subscribe, and yeah, I'll see you in the next one.